Hello and welcome back. I'm sorry I have not been consistent about getting videos up on this channel yet. I promise I will do better. I don't know when, but at some point there will be a more consistent schedule on here. But I just wanted to show you what's going in. My library is underway and it is now going to take up the entire wall. So instead of just being this corner, it's going to go across the top. Then there will be another shelf and some cabinets down here. And then I get a sliding ladder that's going to go all the way across, which I am super excited for. I have always wanted a library ladder. So now I just have to find that. That's my job. Babe and his brother are building the library. I just have to find the ladder. So I'm still working on moving some of my book reviews to this channel. And today it's going to be my Fredrik Backman review. I have now read pretty much all of his books because since I did the last review, I have listened to Anxious People. So good. I think that might be one of my favorites of his. I just love Fredrik Backman's Backman. I love his character development. I love the way he builds his characters, and you find yourself really falling in love even with the hardest of characters to fall in love with, if that makes any sense. And that was definitely the case in Anxious People. It's just this great hodgepodge of characters that end up in an apartment together being held hostage. The hostage's point of view is there as well. So you're getting all of these characters together, and he just does such a great job of taking hard world, real life things and making them easier to swallow. And so if you get a chance to read Anxious People, I definitely recommend it. I listened to it and I actually really loved the audio. So listen to it, read it, either one. But Anxious People by Fredrik Backman is great. The only one I've had trouble with was actually my mom's favorite. She said, listen to My Grandmother Told Me to Tell You She's Sorry. And that one I did or tried to do as a physical read, and it wasn't that I didn't like it. I just wasn't in the right headspace for it when I started reading it. So then it had to go back to the library and I didn't get to finish it. So I do need to do that one again. But otherwise, I've read all his other books and love them. And this video is my thoughts on all of the books of his that I have read. And I did just find this. It's just a really short little story of his that I haven't read yet. But it's about, death and kind of coming to terms with it as you're losing people that are going to be leaving your life soon. And so I haven't started this one yet because I'm sure it's going to be a little hard, but good. But I just really like his writing a lot. So if you've read any of Fredrik Backman's books, let me know. Enjoy. Join me for today's book chat. I am sharing Fredrik Backman books today because I stumbled back upon him when some of the books here from the lady we are renting, her daughters had sent her this huge stack of books, and a lot of them included his books. And so I picked up one to read it, and then I've now read almost all of them. But I first started with him with A Man Called Uva. We read this for book club, maybe 2 years ago now. It was one of the first books I read when I joined book club, and I've been in book club now for 2, maybe almost 3 years. A Man Called Uva is just a really sweet story. It took me a long time to get into. Actually, a lot of his books take a little while to get into, at least for me. But once you are in, the characters are just you're so invested in them that you want to keep reading. His books are very real life. Usually I do read realistic fiction, but with realistic fiction, usually at the end of the book, it's wrapped up with a nice little bow. It ends kind of the way you want it to. Yes, hard things happen, but it just usually ends up with a nice little bow. That is not the case with a good majority of his books. They are still very real life. The endings are real life, and there's actually something enjoy about the way he does it that makes me want to read his other books. It's still very realistic, but there's hope at the end. And that's just kind of the way I think we have to look at life. It's hard, but we have to pray that there's hope. So Man Called Uva is about a grumpy old man. He has lost his wife, and he moves into the town, or maybe somebody moves in next to him. They move in next to him. It said, Uva's well-ordered, solitary world gets a shake-up one November morning with the appearance of new neighbors, a chatty young couple and their 2 boisterous daughters, who announce their arrival by accidentally flattening Uva's mailbox with their U-Haul. And you just quickly get hooked on Uva, and his grumpiness becomes this just endearing quality that you connect to. You begin to connect to the family, the neighbors. It's just a really great story. So this one I read quite a while ago. I have now finished 3 more books in probably the last 3 weeks, starting with Beartown. Beartown is hard. Just a lot of tough subject matter. It is about a family in this small town whose kind of sole purpose of life for this town is hockey, this hockey club. The dad of the family is the hockey club's general manager, but the basis of this book is there's a sexual assault that takes place. So if that is a trigger for you in any way, I would not read this book. It's in there, it's very hard. One of the quotes in this book is, it's repeated over and over again, we cannot protect our children, we cannot protect our children, we cannot protect our children. And one of the reasons I think sometimes the realistic fiction books are so good is they kind of bring out feelings in ourselves that we've kind of repressed and don't want to deal with. And for me, that very much rang true with this book. We do not have children, Babe and I, at least not yet. And one of the reasons for that is we're just not sure what that will look like for us now, because we know the realities of life and we know that we cannot protect our children. No matter what we do, no matter how we raise them, no matter what kind of precautions we take to kind of keep them safe, or as safe as we think we cannot protect our children from the realities of this world. We cannot protect them from growing up and realizing that life is hard, and that's the most simple thing we can't protect them from. But there's so many other things that we just can't protect them from. And so we're kind of at a crossroads with, are we going to have a biological child and bring them into a world that, one, they may not have really wanted to be brought into, or even so, one that we can't protect them from? Or do we, open ourselves up to the idea of maybe fostering children who are already here in this world without as much of the protection as maybe they could have, to at least give them some semblance of childhood before that kind of realization is brought into the picture. So I know I just kind of went off on a tangent, but yes, whatever that looks like, whether we do have biological children, God willing, I do think foster care will possibly be part of our story. And just reading kind of books like this help me at least answer questions for myself that I try to avoid. And so that was one of the themes for this book with me. Actually, I had the same kind of thing happen with A Man Called Uva, just in a very different way. And I usually relate to quotes. I'm a huge quote person. And in A Man Called Uva, there's a quote that goes somewhere along the lines of, his world was black and white, but she was color. She was all the color he had. And there was just something about that rang true for me for personal reasons as well, and connected me to both the those quotes connected me to both of these stories. But Beartown, again, same thing. It doesn't really end up maybe the way you want it to, especially because there's this ending that you're like, wait, what? Like, you just dropped this thing and you're telling me these things. I don't want to give it away about these characters. What am I supposed to do with that? I'm like, there has to be a second. There has to be a second. Thankfully, I found out there was. So I immediately went on Amazon and bought Us Against You, because this one wasn't here. So they had Beartown, but then Us Against You is actually pretty recent. So I quickly got it. Thank goodness I didn't have to wait between the two. Us Against You is the second part of Beartown. It's actually kind of what happens in the aftermath of everything that has gone on with the family and this hockey club and this town, in the aftermath of the sexual assault and those characters and what continues to, happen to them, what their story continues to be. And again, just really good character building stories. You are so connected to these characters and you want to know what happens to them. And pretty similar ending. Not probably the way you want it to go, but hopeful in its own way. And I love that about these stories in a way that usually I don't with stories that are this realistic, this real life. He just writes in such a way that you really want to keep reading what he is putting out. So I read Beartown, quickly followed it up with Us Against You. Excuse me. I lost my mom and I. Mom and I just got back from Egypt and I lost my voice. And so it's still kind of coming and going. No, I do not have coronavirus, I promise. But my voice still kind of comes and goes. So while I was in Egypt, I read Britt Marie Was Here. And this actually did not take me very long to get into. Britt Marie's character is so just awkward and quirky, and you just can't help but kind of smile when you read even the first chapter. She's just blunt, but in a way that she doesn't realize she's being blunt. She is like, why are people laughing? Why are people shocked that I said that? Did I say something wrong? She doesn't realize, and it's just, it makes you love her and it makes you want to keep reading about her. It's very similar, kind of a female version to me of A Man Called Uva, but in just a very different way. And the main focus of this town is soccer. So if you like sports, these are good books, because Us Against You and Beartown, those are very hockey focused. Soccer is very prominent in Britt Marie Was Here. I'm not a huge sports fan, but it is very much in these stories, so there's a lot of sports stuff going on if you love that. So Britt Marie Was Here, again, very just realistic life stuff. And at the end of the book, your heart feels so full and hopeful for what Britt Marie's next chapter may be. There probably will not be a second one of this, actually, I'm pretty sure. Like, they wrap it up to where there is not going to be more to the story, but I do know that Britt Marie, I think, is in his other book that I have not read yet, but my mom said is her favorite one of his. She's read 3 of his now, but he has one more out called My Grandmother Told Me to Tell You She's Sorry. And so I still have to read that one, but I'm taking a little break because I need a little less realistic fiction. We're also reading a book for book club, and so I'm just going to take a break from these for a while before I go back to Fredrik Backman. So if you have not read these, I would definitely recommend it. If you have, please let me know what's your favorite book of his. Do you like his writing? Let me know your thoughts. And I hope you will join me for another book chat. All right. Bye, guys. Enjoy the journey.